Welcome to Sunday School Junkie, the podcast for anyone who's addicted to reaching kids for the kingdom. Whether you're a brand new volunteer, a veteran teacher, or just looking for inspiration, this is the place for tips, tricks, and stories from the best in apostolic children's ministry. Let's talk shop, share resources, and celebrate the incredible opportunity we have to shape young lives for Jesus. Now let's get started. All right, welcome to 2026. Let's just call this Season 2, Episode 1 of Sunday School Junkie. It's been a bit, but we're back at it. New year, let's give this thing a shot. We're going to try again for every other Tuesday, opposite of truism. And my goal is to keep this pretty simple, 20 to 30 minutes, and I have a feeling we're going to bust that a few times this year, maybe a lot of times this year, but, we're just going to try again. Big part of this is this year I want to talk to a whole bunch of you guys. A big reason why I wanted to do Sunday School Junkie was not for me to talk into a mic, but for me to be able to talk to others and get perspectives, different thoughts and ways of doing things across the country. We've got our big group chat and WhatsApp that is just always so full of good stuff, and we've got elders out there that I don't want to miss. One of my heroes was Elder Tom Wainwright, and I several times last year I sent a text to Brother Chris Wainwright, and I was like, man, I need to call your dad and get him on the phone and get him to record with me for Sunday School Junkie, and I missed my opportunity. So I don't want to miss any more opportunities like that. So didn't get a chance to actually get him on the line before he passed. So hey, but we can start now and we can move forward. So today I want to talk about something. This is just going to be me today, but a lot of these episodes I want to get others on here. And today's episode is going to be about power of positive intent. So when Kimberly and I were about 18 years old, for spring break, I took her up to New Hampshire to meet my family. And we were riding in the car with my meme and my Pepe, and I have no idea where we were going. But Pepe was driving exactly like every good New England grandfather drives, slow. Like this could be his last trip and he's going to squeeze every moment out of it that he can, slow. And Kim and I were in the back seat and Meme was in the front with him. And at some point, the guy behind us, he was... He finally had it. He was done. So he whipped around us. He honked his horn. He stuck his arm out the window, and he gave us the full New England salute. And without missing a beat, my meme gasped, and she said, "Oh, he waved at us. He must have been a friend." And she was so sincere and happy that she had run into somebody that wanted to say hi on the street. And Kimberly and I, we looked at each other. We gave each other one of those looks. We're like, "Meme, that was not a wave." And we still laugh about it today, many years later. But Meme wasn't joking. She really believed that man was greeting us, that he somehow had recognized her, and that we were just being passed by a friend. Now, from our perspective, Kimberly and I, we saw the guy's frustration, but Meme saw friendliness. Where we assumed negative intent, she assumed positive intent. And that moment really stuck with me. Because most of us live life in the opposite direction. Like, it's human nature to assume the worst. Like, I'm sure I'm not the only one. Actually, I think I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but it's human nature to not think that way. And Meme assumed positive intent. In that simple mindset, when we shift to assuming positive intent, it will dramatically improve our quality of life. Over half of the conflicts in our life will mysteriously vanish when we assume positive intent. All right, I'm going to throw in a new recurring thing for Sunday School Junkie, and it's called the twist. And somewhere in every episode, I'm going to throw in a short game or challenge, something fun, something interactive, and sometimes we'll connect it to the topic. Today's twist is 2 truths and a lie, Kid Bin edition. So I'm going to give you 3 statements. 2 are true, 1 is a lie. No cheating. Each person or family gets a guess. If you message me with the correct answer by midnight, January 25th, you're going to receive a special gift. You can DM me with your answer. If you know my phone number, you can text me. If you don't know my phone number, you can get me on WhatsApp, or if you're in the group, you can email me actually at truismpodcast@gmail.com. That's truispodcast@gmail.com. And then today's segment, she doesn't know this yet, but today's segment is sponsored by Brianna Hinckley's Cash App account, because nobody uses the phrase "take my money" more effectively than Sister Hinckley. All right, here we go. Now, that was not one of the lies, 2 truths and a lie statement. And it wasn't really sponsored by her Cash App either, but we'll go with it. All right, 2 truths and a lie, Kid Bin edition. Statement number 1. A child wanted to show his teacher his brand new cowboy boots. He was so excited about his new cowboy boots, and as the teacher knelt down to admire these new boots, that boy reared back and kicked the teacher as hard as he could. Truth or lie? Statement number 2. In the middle of a puppet show, a kids' church, the puppeteers were leaning on the puppet stage, and it 100% completely fell over, revealing who they were. Puppet stage fell over in the middle of a puppet show. Statement number 2. Statement number 3. 2 truths and a lie. Okay, during transition to main service, we lost a child. Searching for the kid everywhere. After a few minutes, obviously, we don't wait too long. We called the police. And then we kept searching as we were waiting on the police to arrive, and we found the child asleep under his mother's pew, exactly where he should have been. All right, lock in your answer, number 1, number 2, number 3. Which one is the lie? There's 2 truths and 1 lie in there. Message me your guess before midnight, January 25th, and remember, no cheating. All right, let's get back to Sunday School Junkie, because what I'm about to talk about is exactly why stories like these can either make you cynical or make you wiser. So let's define positive intent. This is kind of more of a business thought process, I guess, or term or whatever. So the definition of assuming positive intent is that this is a mindset where you start with the belief that others are good, fair, and trying their best. Even when their actions are confusing or negative, it involves giving people the benefit of the doubt, setting aside judgment, and replacing assumptions with curiosity to seek understanding before making conclusions. This approach can improve communication, build trust, and increase collaboration in both personal and professional relationships. All right. A while back, pastor was preaching not too long ago, and he said, always give people the benefit of the doubt until there is no doubt. So let's knock this out and let's clarify a couple things real quick. That assuming positive intent is a pretty common workplace leadership principle concept. So as such, there isn't really much out there in regards to applying it to children's ministry specifically, but it works when dealing with kids. Kids are people, and this is a people process. This is a people, I don't know the word I'm looking for, principle. And so kids are people. And if we're leading others, this is huge when handling volunteers. If you're leading a department or if you're just interacting part of a department, it's good, just good for relationships. And while it is incredibly helpful and certainly powerful, you've got to know that straight up, sometimes people's intentions are not positive. And so there is a bit of discernment needed. But again, I want to repeat my pastor's words. Always give the benefit of the doubt until there is no doubt. So why we misinterpret people, this is the real problem and the real issue. As we get into this, we got to talk about why this is such a big deal. Why do we misread people so easily? Why do we assume the worst instead of the best? Why is it so hard to assume positive intent even when we want to? And there's a few reasons for that. When you hear them, it's going to make perfect sense. And again, by my nature, I've always been a glass half full, optimistic, positive person. But this can still sometimes be a struggle for me. Sometimes, and here are a few real scientific reasons for it. Number one, we have what's called negativity bias. Our brain leans towards the negativity. On their studies, they found that your brain pays 5 times more attention to something that's negative than positive. And they say this is survival wiring, that our brains are designed to protect us, to scan for threats, to assume danger before assuming safety. So when someone, or they look irritated, or they walk past you quickly, or they respond with a short text message, or they seem something seems a little off, your brain jumps straight to the worst case interpretation. It's not because you're dramatic. You're human. It's a human thing. And in leadership, if we're not careful, we respond to people out of that instinct instead of applying our understanding. Number 2, and this one's really probably one of the main parts of this. It's called the fundamental attribution error. Here's what it means. It means we judge other people by their actions, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. So we fundamentally attribute to others, we interpret what they're doing, right? But for us, we know what we're intending, and so when we're doing something, we're judging ourselves by our intentions, but we judge others by what they're doing. So like if you're tired, okay, you're going to say, well, I acted that way because I was tired. I did it because I was tired. But if somebody else is tired, you don't know that off the top of your head. So you're going to say, well, they're just being disrespectful. Or they're late because they're irresponsible. But you're late because traffic was exceptionally bad. That kid is just a problem. He's just, But my kid, he's just having a rough day. So this one bias really ruins relationships a lot. It causes conflict. That's really where a lot of damage happens and a lot of misunderstanding happens because we're giving ourselves grace based on our intention, based on what we intended, right? But we judge others based on their actions. And then number 3, the third big factor here is personal fatigue makes assumptions louder. So if we're interpreting other people's motives through the lenses of our own fatigue or burnout or stress or past hurts or old conflicts or old baggage, we don't usually call it that, do we? We simply say we have experience, not baggage, not conflicts. No, we've had experience. And so when you're tired, you're always going to assume the worst motives. When you're hurt, you're always going to overinterpret. When you're overwhelmed, you're always going to choose the fastest conclusion, which isn't always the truest one. And then that affects how we treat others, how we treat parents, how we treat kids, how we treat volunteers, how we treat other leaders, how we treat our families. This is where Scripture really steps in to help us correct this lens. This is where we should really apply the most used out of context Scripture. 1 Samuel 16:7, man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. So humans see the behavior, but Jesus saw the intent. And if we're called to be Christ-like, then a big part of being like Jesus is learning to respond to people the way he does. Look for that intention. Look for that heart first, and then their actions second. And this is why assuming positive intent isn't just a nice idea. It's actually spiritual discipline. It's a skill. It's a ministry skill. It's a leadership trait. And it's a way to live a lot more like Jesus. The Bible is full of moments where people misjudged others based on action, and God had to correct them. So this isn't like some newfangled thing. This is, like I said, human nature is you don't see the intention. You're judging others based on their actions, not their intention. And so let's look at a few of those biblical examples. And there really are a lot of these, but let's start with the one that led up to 1 Samuel 16:7 there. God sends Samuel to anoint the next king. And Jesse brings in his oldest son, Eliab. He's tall, he's strong, he's impressive. Samuel looks at him and thinks, that's got to be the one. And God stops him immediately, and that's where this verse comes in. It says, man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. And if we're looking at this in 2026, we're looking at you're judging the outside, but God's judging the inside. And kids' ministry is full of this tension. The loud kid looks really disruptive, disrespectful, doesn't know how to act. But maybe that kid's got leadership potential. The shy kid looks disengaged, but maybe they're really hungry for God, and maybe they just don't have some of the skills that they need to engage. The child who acts up may not be trying to ruin class. He might just need some attention or connection. So Samuel reminds us that we can neither crown nor condemn people based on appearance alone. Now, we know in that story that David came in and he was the runtiest of them all, right? But he was anointed king. They didn't even think he was worthy enough to be there. But now let's look at Samuel's mother, Hannah. She comes into the temple and she is absolutely broken. This is before Samuel was born, right? She's heartsick. She's grieving. She's desperate because she wants a child more than anything in the world. And she begins to pray. And her lips are moving, but no words come out. It's raw emotion. It's pain that doesn't have language. Like she can't even put into words. She's just there. And Eli the priest, he sees this and he's watching her shoulders shake and her face is pressed down and her lips are moving and he didn't hear anything coming out. And so what does he assume? Does he assume this woman is in deep prayer and deep need of a move of God? She's in intercession. She's got a deep, desperate need that she needs filled? Nope. He assumes that she's drunk. And he walks over and he rebukes her right there publicly. He misjudged her action, which was a silent prayer, and assigns the wrong intent to it. But here's where the story really, this is what I love about this story. And it becomes really like, this is how we should act. This is incredibly instructive, right? Hannah doesn't get offended. She doesn't lash out. She doesn't throw up her hands and say, I'm done with this synagogue. Oh, I need to go get me a new priest, one who understands me. I'm not being fed here. This leadership is toxic. Forget this. I'm going to go find a better church. Nope. Hannah responds with humility and grace and emotional control. She says, no, my Lord, I'm a woman of sorrowful spirit. She clarifies instead of escalating. She explains it instead of attacking. She shows restraint in the face of misjudgment. You know, that had to hurt getting rebuked by the priest when she's got that need and she's got that pain that she's already feeling. But she assumed positive intent. She gave Eli more grace than he gave her. She judged his intention more graciously than he judged hers. And the very next words out of Eli's mouth were a prophetic blessing. He said, "Go in peace, the God of Israel grant thee thy petition." Her refusal to take offense actually opened up the door for the miracle for her that she had been praying for. And I wonder how many Hannah moments we face in kids ministry when that child shuts down and we assume disrespect. How many do we miss? A volunteer is quiet, we assume disinterest, or a parent is short and we assume their attitude. A kid acts out, they're being rebellious, whatever. Sometimes people aren't being rebellious or whatever, they're just wounded or they're overwhelmed or they're exhausted or they're misunderstood. That's why we've got to assume positive intent. Hannah teaches us that misinterpretation creates conflict. Assuming positive intent creates miracles. Zacchaeus is another great example because everybody misread him. The crowd saw a thief, a traitor, a scoundrel, just a man not worth Jesus' time. But Jesus saw something entirely different. He saw a man curious enough to climb a tree, bold enough to push past his shame, hungry enough to seek the truth. The crowd judged Zacchaeus' actions, but Jesus judged his intent. The Samaritan woman at the well, she had all these strikes against her. She was a Samaritan, the wrong people. She had a past, 5 husbands, wrong past, wrong people, and because of that, she had to go to the well at the wrong time of day. She couldn't go when everybody else went because everybody assumed the worst, but not Jesus. As a matter of fact, he said, "I've got to go through Samaria to get to Jerusalem," because he knew there was somebody he had to meet. He looked past her behavior and he saw the deeper longing that she was really looking for, that she was really thirsty for the truth, for identity, for transformation. And that one conversation, one moment of somebody assuming positive intent, being seen correctly, she became the first evangelist in Samaria. When Lazarus died, Mary, Martha, they both said the same thing. "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died." In other words, you're late, you didn't care, you didn't show up when we needed you. They misinterpreted Jesus' timing as neglect, when his actual intent was deeper. His intent, talk about positive, it was resurrection. Yeah, healing is good. Resurrection, glory, not disappointment. That's what he was aiming for. Even the closest disciples misread Jesus sometimes. The disciples panicked in the storm, right? They shook Jesus awake and said, "Don't you care that we're dying?" They mistook his peace for absence. But Jesus was in complete control the entire time. They misread the moment, but he didn't misread them. And when you look at all these things together, you realize that people misjudge each other constantly, but Jesus never does. Obviously, Jesus has the advantage of being God manifest in the flesh, right? But let's flip that for a minute and let's just think. Let's just think, what if Jesus treated us the way we treat people? What if he assumed the worst? What if he let the man nature, the flesh nature of Jesus, what if he let that win? And what if he judged our actions without ever considering the intent? Let's explore that, because the contrast is really it's funny, but it's accurate too. So let's start with Peter. Peter gets out of the boat. He takes a few brave steps and he's walking on this water, and then he starts sinking. And if Jesus was like us, what would the response be? "Oh, really, Peter? Look, man, I gave you one job, man. All you had to do was step out and come to me. Walk on the water, dude. That was it. What is this? First day, new legs? Come on, man. 11 of your best friends are just watching you now. Come on, you're embarrassing this entire ministry team. Maybe, you know what? I'm done. You swim back to the boat. Let's see how that goes." Right? But Jesus doesn't do the sarcasm. He doesn't roll his eyes. He doesn't say, "Hey, here we go again." He reached out. He grabbed Peter's arm, and they went back to the boat, right? Because Jesus treats others' intent like we treat our own intentions. Imagine Jesus reacting like us when the woman with the issue of blood pressed through the crowd. That woman touched his garment. He's on his way to heal Jairus' daughter, right? He's on his way to raise this little girl from the dead. Great crowds following him. And if Jesus was like us, ma'am, don't grab my clothes. Give me some personal space. Come on, boundaries, right? There's a proper prayer line for your need, lady. Lady, don't you know I was saving up that power to go raise this little girl from the dead? Don't just cut in line like that. Get to the back of the line. Don't you even care about this little girl? Don't you think this little girl's death is a little bit more important than your little sickness here? But instead of assuming that she was being inappropriate, he assumed that she's acting in faith. He called her daughter, and he honored the intent behind the action. The disciples get into a debate over who's the greatest. If Jesus was like us, he'd be like, are you serious right now? I leave you guys alone for 10 minutes and already you're comparing your resumes. Maybe he'd just be like, okay, everybody go home. No miracles today. The attitude in this group is just unbelievable. I can't even put up with it. But Jesus doesn't shame them. Instead, he teaches them gently, right? He sees their desire for significance, even though it comes out as ego, and he teaches them, this is how you get great in my kingdom. He sees the intent inside their immaturity. And here's the point of all of this. If Jesus judged our behavior the way we judge other people's behavior, we'd be all sunk, right? If Jesus assumed our worst intentions instead of our best, not a single one of us would be around. We wouldn't make it. But he doesn't. He always looks deeper. He always sees the heart. He always interprets the motives with compassion. And he always assumes the best and draws us into even better. If Jesus treats our intentions with grace, how dare we treat other people's intentions with suspicion? And this is why assuming positive intent isn't just good psychology. It's discipleship. It's Christ-likeness. It's leadership. It's essential for healthy kids ministry, really healthy relationships in general. So let's take everything we've talked about, the psychology, the scripture, the stories, the humor, and bring it right into the reality of where we are. Because here's the truth. Kids, they don't behave the way you want them to behave. But they almost always have a reason for the way they're behaving. And if you only discipline the action, you miss the intention. And then you miss the ministry moment. So like, we all know the kid who thinks pulling the fire alarm is hilarious, right? The action is reckless, but the intent isn't usually evil. There's some kind of attention lacking, or wanting to feel powerful, or wanting to be seen, or wanting to belong, or wanting to be funny because nobody laughs at them. And when you understand the intention, you can address the real need instead of just the behavior. Or the class clown that cracks jokes, interrupts lessons, makes noises at the worst time. The behavior says this is disrespect. But sometimes the intent could be that they feel invisible. Could be that, maybe you're boring them. I hate to say that, but maybe it's true, right? The kids don't want to derail the class, but they do want to matter. Or there's a silent kid that never answers a question, doesn't participate, seems completely disinterested. Their action says they don't care. But their intent says that they're anxious, they're scared of failure. Maybe they've been shut down, criticized, or ignored. You don't know. Got to look for that intent. The child doesn't lack interest. They lack safety. So when you start assuming positive intent with kids, you'll see that your patience increases, your frustration decreases, your compassion grows, your strategies get smarter, your classroom gets calmer, your kids feel understood. And what you're doing becomes discipleship, not damage control. This is why assuming positive intent literally changes the atmosphere of your class. Behavior tells you something, but it doesn't tell you everything. Intent is usually deeper than the moment. And I want to say this clearly. Positive intent isn't only for kids, it's for grown-ups too. If you lead volunteers, you've seen it. Missed meetings, unprepared lessons, confusion, someone forgetting what they agreed to do. But the culture you create matters. If your team feels like they constantly have to defend themselves, they're just going to stop trying. They'll shrink back. They'll go quiet. But if your team feels safe, they believe you're going to assume the best before you believe the worst, then they'll rise to the occasion. They'll grow. They'll get better, and that's how healthy teams are built. So let me close with just a few scriptures that drive this home. Because, again, positive intent isn't just a psychology or leadership trick. It's a Christ-like way to interpret people. Proverbs 20:5 says, "Counsel in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw it out." So here's the picture. Their behavior is the surface, but their intent is that deep water. And wise leaders aren't just going to react to what they see, but they're going to learn how to get deep into that water and draw out what's underneath. 1 Corinthians 13:7 says, "Love beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things." And that's Scripture's version of assume the best before you believe the worst. Love doesn't start with a suspicion, it starts with hope. Philippians 2:3-5 tells us to esteem others better than ourselves and to look on the things of others, not just our own. And that means I don't just ask, what did they do? I ask, what are they carrying? I try to see their struggle, their perspective, their pressure. James 1:19 says, "Let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath." That's not just behavior control for us, it's interpretation control. That we should pause before reacting, ask before assuming. In Matthew 7:12, the golden rule. But let's apply it proactively. Treat their behavior the way you wish people treated your intentions. Because that's the human problem. We judge ourselves by intent, but we judge others by their actions. Kids do it, volunteers do it, pastors do it, parents do it, humans do it. So if we want to be more like Jesus, one of the biggest steps is learning to assume positive intent the way he did. Jesus consistently gave people the benefit of the doubt. He interpreted their needs, not just their actions. He asked questions before forming conclusions, and he looked at the heart before reacting. He lifted people up instead of labeling them. And if Jesus, perfect, holy, righteous, can assume positive intent with broken people, sinful, evil people, then surely we can do the same. Now that doesn't mean we ignore patterns. It doesn't mean we pretend everything's fine. It just means that our first response is grace, not accusation. Give people the benefit of the doubt until there is no doubt. Our first move is curiosity, not conclusions. Our first instinct is love, not suspicion. So here's the takeaway. Behavior tells you something, but it doesn't tell you everything. Intent is usually deeper than the moment. And when we start interpreting people the way Jesus does, heart first, we don't just reduce conflict, we increase ministry. Next episode, we're going to talk about perspective, how to look at the same situation, the same kid, even the same Bible story, and see what God might be trying to show you that you missed the first time. That's it for this episode of the Sunday School Junkie. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all those things, but most importantly, share it with someone in kids ministry. Let's build a community of passionate teachers who are reaching this next generation. And if you're looking for more great children's ministry resources, I highly recommend checking out the Apostolic Podcast Network for even more amazing content. Till next time, keep loving, keep teaching, keep making a difference.